Enter a world where the lines between predator and prey blur. A world where plants don't just survive, but hunt. The stillness of a marsh, broken by the sudden snap of a Venus flytrap. A pitcher plant lies in wait, its nectar luring insects to a slippery doom. This is nature turned on its head, a world where the green and the silent become the hunters, trapping and devouring the very creatures that dare to come too close.
Number 10. Corkscrew plant Genlisea. Genlisea, commonly called corkscrew plants, is a group of carnivorous plants. About 30 species of these plants can be found in wet areas from Africa to Central and South America. These plants have specially adapted underground leaves that lure, trap, and digest tiny creatures like protozoans. Charles Darwin first suggested that these plants might be carnivorous over a century ago, but it wasn't confirmed until 1998. The name Genlisea is a tribute to the French writer and educator Stéphanie Félicité Ducrest de Saint-Albin, known as the Comtesse de Genlis. Some species in this group, such as G. margarete, G. aurea, and G. tuberosa, have the smallest known genomes among flowering plants. Genlisea plants come in many forms, showing a wide range of genetic diversity. For example, G. tuberosa grows tubers that store carbohydrates in water, helping it survive in fire-prone areas. Other species have thickened stolons. These plants are small herbs that grow from a slender underground stem. They have two types of leaves, the photosynthetic ones above ground, and the specially adapted ones below ground used for trapping prey. They don't have roots, but the underground traps help anchor the plant and absorb water and nutrients. The plants produce several flowers on tall, slender stalks. The flowers have a tube-like structure with a spur, and the lower part of the flower's tube has 3 lobes. The calyx, or outer floral structure, has 5 lobes. Unlike the 3-lobed calyx found in related plants, the flower colors vary from yellow to violet, with some species being white or cream. The lower lip of the flower helps guide pollinators to the nectar, using scent and mechanical cues. Microscopic glandular hairs on the flower's surface may help protect the plant from herbivores, although they don't directly contribute to the plant's carnivorous behavior. The leaves above ground are usually long and narrow or spoon-shaped, ranging from 0.5 to 5 centimeters in length. Below ground, the traps are white and lack chlorophyll. They consist of a cylindrical stalk that widens into a bulb-like structure and then narrows again, forming corkscrew-like spirals with inward-pointing hairs. These structures passively catch tiny organisms. Since the traps are buried in soil full of tiny creatures, they are constantly stimulated. The plant releases digestive enzymes to break down prey and absorb nutrients. The traps create an oxygen-poor environment, which may help kill prey, while certain bacteria survive in these conditions. Currently, there are 29 recognized species in this genus, with 2 varieties of G. aurea. Identifying species often relies on differences in the flower structure. Genlisea plants show high genetic variation, including different rates of genetic mutations. Augustin-François César Provençal de Saint-Hilaire discovered this genus in 1883, describing 4 species: G. aurea, G. filiformis, G. pygmaea, and G. violacea. The size of the genome in Genlisea species varies greatly, with some of the smallest known plant genomes. For instance, G. nigrocaulus has a genome size of 86 mbp, while its close relative G. hispidula has a genome 18 times larger at 1,550 mbp. Some species show different genome sizes, suggesting variations in their ploidy levels. The traps of Genlisea host various microorganisms, including bacteria, algae, fungi, and tiny animals. Research shows that these microbes play a crucial role in the plant's digestion process, highlighting the ecological importance of these tiny traps. Number 9. Trigger plants, Stylidium. Trigger plants, or Stylidium, are a fascinating group of plants in the Stylidiaceae family. The name Stylidium comes from the Greek word stylos, meaning column, referring to the plant's unique flower structure. Some trigger plants are considered proto-carnivorous or carnivorous because they can trap, kill, and digest small insects using sticky hairs called trichomes that produce digestive enzymes. However, recent studies have questioned whether all Stylidium species are truly carnivorous. Most Stylidium plants are perennial herbs, meaning they live for several years, and some even use bulbs to store nutrients. A few species are annuals, living for just 1 year. Trigger plants have distinctive flowers with a column where the male and female parts are fused. This column, or trigger, is usually below the flower petals. The flowers are symmetrical only along one plane, and typically bloom in late spring in Australia. Trigger plants come in a variety of sizes and shapes. Some are only a few centimeters tall, while others can reach up to 1.8 meters. They can form dense rosettes close to the ground or grow into wiry, sprawling mats. Their flowers usually have 4 petals and vary in color, including white, cream, yellow, or pink. Most flowers grow in spikes or clusters, though some species, like Stylidium uniflorum, have only 1 flower per stem. The leaves of trigger plants also show a lot of variation. Some are thin and needle-like, while others are short and grouped in rosettes. Some species, like Stylidium scandens, form tangled mats with aerial roots. The trigger in Stylidium flowers is very sensitive. When an insect lands on the flower, the trigger responds quickly, snapping forward in just 15 milliseconds. This action covers the insect with pollen. The trigger then resets to its original position, taking a few minutes to half an hour depending on the temperature. Although the trigger can operate many times before wearing out, it works more slowly in colder temperatures. Stylidium plants are often pollinated by small solitary bees and bee flies that feed on nectar. Some species also have glandular trichomes that can trap and kill insects, but it's not clear if this is a way to get extra nutrients or just a defense mechanism. Stylidium plants are mostly found in Australia, with more than 150 species in Western Australia alone. A few species are found outside Australia, in places like Myanmar, Sri Lanka, and the Philippines. They grow in a variety of habitats, from grassy plains and rocky slopes to disturbed areas like roadsides. Despite their diversity, natural hybrids between Stylidium species are rare. The first known hybrid was reported in 1969. The study and description of Stylidium began in the late 18th century, with early contributions from botanists like Joseph Banks and Charles-François Antoine Morin. Recent research, including work by Douglas Darnowski, has expanded our understanding of these intriguing plants. Cultivating Stylidium can be challenging, especially for species requiring special conditions like dormancy or smoke treatment. However, many species are hardy and can be grown in gardens or greenhouses. They generally tolerate cold temperatures and can be cultivated in various regions, including parts of the UK and the US. Number 8. Waterwheel plant Aldrovanda vesiculosa. Aldrovanda vesiculosa, or the waterwheel plant, is the only living species in its genus, Aldrovanda, which belongs to the Droseraceae family. This fascinating plant catches tiny aquatic creatures, usually insects and small fish, with traps. The traps are arranged in circles around a floating stem, which is why it's called the waterwheel plant. It's one of the few plants that can move quickly. Over the last century, Aldrovanda vesiculosa has become quite rare, with only about 50 known populations worldwide, scattered across Europe, Africa, Asia, and Australia. There are also potentially invasive populations in the eastern United States. This plant is often grown by enthusiasts. Aldrovanda vesiculosa is unique because it doesn't have roots. When it starts growing, it briefly has a small, rudimentary root, but it quickly dies off. The plant consists of floating stems that can be between 6 and 40 centimeters long. Its trap leaves, which are about 2 to 3 millimeters wide, grow in clusters of 5 to 9 along the stem. These traps are held up by small stalks with air sacs that help the plant float. The plant grows quickly, producing a new cluster of traps daily under the best conditions. The traps themselves have 2 lobes that snap shut when they sense an insect, similar to the Venus flytrap, but smaller and underwater. These traps close incredibly fast, in just 10 to 20 milliseconds, making it one of the quickest plant movements known. This action happens only when the water is warm enough, above 20 degrees Celsius. Each trap is surrounded by tiny bristles that prevent it from closing on debris. Aldrovanda vesiculosa thrives in low-nutrient water thanks to its ability to capture and use nutrients from trapped prey and reuse nutrients from old shoots. Its tiny white flowers, which appear briefly above the water, are supported by short stems and quickly sink after blooming to produce seeds. These seeds are designed to stay hidden until they're ready to grow. Flowering is rare in cooler regions and often doesn't result in successful seed production. The plant mainly reproduces by producing new offshoots. In good conditions, it grows rapidly and creates many new plants quickly. In winter, Aldrovanda forms turions, protective buds that sink to the bottom of the water to survive cold temperatures. These buds can endure temperatures as low as -15 degrees Celsius. In spring, they float to the surface to start growing again. Sometimes, similar buds can form during summer droughts. Aldrovanda vesiculosa is the second most widely distributed carnivorous plant. after species from the genus Utricularia. It spreads mainly through birds that carry it to new locations. However, it has become increasingly rare and is now listed as extinct in more and more countries. In the 1970s, hobbyists introduced it to small ponds in the United States, where it could potentially become invasive. The water wheel plant lives in various wetland areas like small fens, bog pools, and river deltas. It does well in environments with low nutrient levels and is usually found in shallow, stable water where it faces less competition. Even small changes in water conditions can cause local extinction. Number 7. Biblis liniflora rainbow plants. Biblis is a small group of carnivorous plants often called rainbow plants because their sticky, shiny leaves sparkle in sunlight. These plants are found in Australia and New Guinea and belong to their own family, Biblidaceae. The first species was described by English botanist Richard Anthony Salisbury in 1808. Today, there are 8 recognized species. Biblis plants might look like other carnivorous plants like Drosera and Drosophilum, but they have unique flowers. Their flowers have 5 curved stamens that are placed off to one side, which sets them apart. Although they may look similar, Biblis is classified in a different plant order than Drosera and Drosophilum. All Biblis plants grow upright and are supported by weak, fibrous roots. They are divided into 2 main groups, the B. liniflora complex and the B. gigantea complex. Their leaves are long and narrow with a round cross-section. They are covered with tiny, sticky hairs that secrete a mucilaginous substance to trap small insects. When insects touch these sticky hairs, they get stuck and either die from exhaustion or suffocate as the mucilage clogs their breathing openings. Unlike some other carnivorous plants, Biblis cannot move their leaves or hairs to help catch prey. Instead, they are considered passive flypaper traps, similar to Pinguicula and other plants. The leaves also have sessile glands that likely produce digestive juices. These glands are much more numerous than the stalked glands. Biblis flowers grow one at a time on leaf-like stems that come out of the leaf axils. The flowers usually have 5 purple or pale violet petals, though some species, like B. gigantea and B. filifolia, can have white flowers. Most Biblis plants need pollen from other plants to produce seeds, except B. liniflora, which can self-pollinate. Some species, like B. gigantea and B. lamellata, release pollen only when they sense the vibrations of a pollinator's wings, which helps ensure cross-pollination. The flowers bloom in early spring and continue until late summer. After fertilization, the flowers develop into egg-shaped seed capsules that split open when dry, releasing seeds. The seeds are usually round and black with web-like markings, though B. lamellata seeds have noticeable ridges. Many Biblis species need bushfires to trigger germination, as the smoke contains chemicals that prompt the seeds to sprout. All Biblis species are native to Australia. B. gigantea and B. lamellata are found in the Perth region of southwest Australia, while the B. liniflora complex is native to northern Australia, with B. liniflora extending into southern Indonesia and Papua New Guinea. These plants typically grow in bogs and marshes, preferring wet, sandy soil and partial to full sunlight, with temperatures ranging from about 5 to 40 degrees Celsius. They are protected by law in Australia and were once internationally protected, but were removed from the CITES list in the year 2000. Trade outside Australia is not regulated, and most plants are now cultivated rather than wild collected. There has been debate about whether Biblis plants are truly carnivorous. Initially, it was thought that they might rely on insects living on their leaves to digest their prey. However, research in 2005 confirmed that Biblis plants do digest insects themselves. Molecular studies place Biblis in the Lamiales order, closely related to other plant families. Number 6. Moccasin plant Cypripedium accal. Cypripedium accal, commonly known as the pink lady slipper or moccasin flower, is a special orchid native to eastern North America. They're known for their moccasin-shaped pitchers. They draw insects with a sweet smell. The clear pitchers confuse the insects, making them tired and eventually digesting them. The insects often knock themselves out trying to get away. This lovely plant is the provincial flower of Prince Edward Island in Canada and the state wildflower of New Hampshire in the US. Indigenous peoples, like the Algonquin, use this plant for medicinal purposes, especially to treat menstrual issues. However, because its numbers are decreasing, collecting it for medicine is no longer recommended. This is because Cypripedium accal takes many years to grow from seed to mature plant, and picking it can hurt its chances of survival. The plant is often called the pink lady's slipper or moccasin flower because of its unique look. The name acaul means without a stem, referring to its short underground stem. It is also known as the stemless lady's slipper. In the Anishinaabe-Moan language, it is called Moccasin. Cypripedium acaul is a slow-growing perennial that can grow up to 0.4 meters tall. Unlike many other orchids, its flower pouch opens with a slit rather than a round hole. The plant has two large pleated leaves near the ground, from which a long stalk comes out, supporting a single pink flower. The flower's sepals and petals are usually yellowish-brown to maroon, with a pink pouch that can sometimes be white or magenta. The leaves are simple, oval-shaped, and arranged opposite each other. The flower attracts bees for pollination, but over time, the bees stop visiting because they don't gain any benefit from the plant. Cypripedium acaul belongs to the slipper orchid subfamily, Cypripedioidea. It was first described by Scottish botanist William Ayton in 1789, who called it the two-leaved lady's slipper. As of March 2021, the Plants of the World Online lists several other names for Cypripedium acaul, including a type with white pouches and green petals. You can find this plant in the eastern part of the U.S., especially around the Great Lakes and the Northeast, and extending south to Alabama. In Canada, it's found in every province except British Columbia, and also in the Northwest Territories and Saint-Pierre and Miquelon. It grows in various places, from coastal plains to mountaintops. Cypripedium acaul needs very acidic soil to grow well, preferring a pH below 5. It does well in pine forests and can also grow in deciduous woods. While it was once thought that a special fungal partnership was necessary for its growth, it is now known that this is only needed for seed germination, not for mature plants. In some places like Illinois and Tennessee, this plant is considered endangered, and it's vulnerable in New York and rare in Georgia. Number 5. Bladderwort utricularia. Utricularia, commonly known as bladderworts, is a group of carnivorous plants with about 233 species. These plants grow in fresh water and wet soil and can be found all over the world, except Antarctica. People often grow utricularia for their flowers, which are compared to snapdragons and orchids, especially among fans of carnivorous plants. Bladderworts are fascinating because they trap small organisms using bladder-like structures. Terrestrial bladderworts, which grow in soil, have tiny traps that capture microscopic creatures like protozoa and rotifers. These traps range from just 0.02 to 1.2 centimeters in size. Aquatic bladderworts, such as the common bladderwort U. vulgaris, have larger bladders that can trap bigger prey like water fleas, nematodes, mosquito larvae, and even small fish or tadpoles. Despite their small size, these traps are incredibly sophisticated. When a prey item brushes against trigger hairs on the trap door, it causes the bladder to suck in the prey and surrounding water in just 10 to 15 milliseconds. Unlike most plants, bladderworts don't have distinct roots, leaves, and stems. They lack a root system entirely. Instead, they have complex traps considered some of the most advanced in the plant world. The main part of the plant usually lives below the surface of its habitat. Terrestrial bladderworts sometimes produce a few green leaf shoots that photosynthesize, while aquatic types are found underwater in ponds and streams. Bladderworts have long, thin stems or stolons beneath their growing area, whether it's pond water or moss in a tropical rainforest canopy. Both the traps and photosynthetic leaf shoots are attached to these stolons. In terrestrial species, shoots can extend through the soil or surface to access sunlight. Terrestrial species like U. sandersoni have tiny traps with a beak-like structure to prevent the ingestion of non-living particles. Aquatic species like U. inflata have larger bladders with antennae to guide prey and keep larger objects away. Epiphytic species have unbranched antennae that also help hold water in front of the trap, aiding in the trapping process. The trapping mechanism of bladderworts is purely mechanical. Unlike Venus flytraps or sundews, bladderworts don't rely on plant reactions to capture prey. Instead, they use a constant pumping of water to create negative pressure inside the bladder. When the pressure reaches a certain level, even a small touch to the lever, hairs on the trapdoor will break the seal, causing the trap to snap open and suck in prey. Once inside, the prey is dissolved by digestive fluids within a few hours. although some small organisms can survive longer. The bladder can be ready for a new capture in just 15 to 30 minutes. Number 4. Cobra Lily Darlingtonia californica. The cobra lily is a remarkable and resilient plant with fascinating adaptations that make it stand out in the world of carnivorous plants. Also known as Darlingtonia californica, it is often called the California pitcher plant, Oregon pitcher plant, cobra lily, or cobra plant, and is a unique carnivorous plant found in the western United States. It belongs to its genus, Darlingtonia, within the pitcher plant family, Sarraceniaceae. This plant is native to Northern California and Oregon, where it thrives in cool, often dry conditions. Despite the challenging environment, the cobra lily has adapted well, growing in various habitats such as bogs, rocky forest slopes, creeks, and areas with cold running water. It even grows in unusual places like drainage ditches and roadways. The name cobra lily comes from the plant's distinctive tubular leaves, which resemble a rearing cobra with a forked tongue that looks like fangs or a serpent's tongue. This striking appearance is what makes the plant so fascinating. The cobra lily was first discovered in 1841 by botanist William D. Brackenridge during the Wilkes expedition at Mount Shasta in Northern California. Later, in 1853, botanist John Torrey formally described the plant and named the genus Darlingtonia after another botanist, William Darlington. While the cobra lily typically grows in nutrient-poor, acidic bogs and seepage slopes, it also thrives in basic ultramafic soils, which are unusual for most plants. This plant is a master of survival, using its large and complex root system to endure fires and regenerate even from damaged roots. However, it has a remarkable sensitivity to temperature. Its roots die off if temperatures rise just above 10 degrees Celsius, even though the rest of the plant can tolerate higher temperatures. Cultivation efforts have led to successful breeding of varieties that can withstand warmer temperatures. The plant is particularly adept at surviving in serpentine soils, which are toxic to most plants. Field studies have shown that it can endure soil temperatures above 80 degrees Fahrenheit, especially when growing in serpentine soils with cold water flowing underneath. Unlike other pitcher plants that rely on rainwater to fill their pitchers, the cobra lily controls the water level inside its traps by absorbing or releasing water pumped up from its roots. Although it was once thought that the cobra lily relied on bacteria and protozoa for digestion, recent research has shown that it produces its digestive enzymes. The plant's pitchers are designed to trap insects effectively. The inside walls are slippery, and downward-pointing hairs prevent prey from escaping. The plant's hood hides the exit hole from trapped insects and provides false exits to confuse them. Despite some misconceptions, the forked tongue of the cobra lily does not play a role in trapping insects. Number 3. Portuguese sundew. Drosophilum is a type of carnivorous plant with only one species, Drosophilum lusitanicum, also known as the Portuguese sundew or dewy pine. This plant looks somewhat like sundews, another type of carnivorous plant, and even more distant relatives like rainbow plants. Drosophilum lusitanicum is a perennial plant, meaning it lives for several years. It has woody stems at the base and short, simple, or rarely branched stems that can be twisted or upright. Its leaves form a dense rosette at the base, are long and narrow, and are covered in tiny, sticky glands. The plant's flowers, which have 5 yellow petals about 20 to 30 millimeters long, are arranged in clusters at the top. The calyx, which is the protective outer part of the flower, has 5 lobes and falls off late. Each flower has 10 stamens and 5 carpels with a simple capitate stigma. The fruit is a capsule divided into 5 sections that open irregularly. The seeds are pear-shaped, rough, and about 2.5 to 3.0 millimeters in diameter. The plant's glandular leaves come from a central rosette. Unlike many sundews, these leaves don't move but have an interesting feature where they coil outward when young. The plant's seeds may need scarification, a process to help them germinate. Drosophilum lusitanicum grows in the western Mediterranean region, including Portugal, southwestern Spain, and northern Morocco. It is one of the few carnivorous plants that thrive in dry soil. It prefers clearings in heather and pine forests, as well as sunny areas with gravel or shale. It can grow from sea level up to 1,200 meters in altitude, and is very tolerant of calcium-rich soils. The plant emits a sweet scent that lures insects. Once the insects land on the leaves, they get stuck in the sticky substances produced by the glands. The more they struggle, the more trapped they become until they die from exhaustion or suffocation. The plant then breaks down the insects with special enzymes and absorbs the nutrients, which help it survive in nutrient-poor soils. Number 2. Tropical pitcher plants, Nepenthes. Tropical pitcher plants are a type of carnivorous plant, also called Nepenthes or monkey cups. These plants belong to a unique family called Nepenthaceae and include about 170 different species, with many natural and cultivated hybrids. They mainly grow in the tropical regions of the Old World, such as South China, Indonesia, Malaysia, the Philippines, Madagascar, the Seychelles, Australia, New Caledonia, India, and Sri Lanka. The greatest variety of these plants can be found in Borneo, Sumatra, and the Philippines. Nepenthes plants usually have a shallow root system and a long climbing stem that can reach up to 15 meters or more. Their stems often have sword-shaped leaves. From these leaves, a tendril grows and develops into a pitcher-shaped trap. This trap starts small and gradually grows into a bulb or tube shape. Inside the pitcher is a fluid produced by the plant. This liquid can be watery or thick and is used to drown insects. The fluid contains sticky biopolymers that help keep the insects from escaping, especially those with wings. Even when it rains and the fluid gets diluted, it still works well to trap insects. The bottom of the pitcher has glands that absorb nutrients from the captured prey. The inside upper part of the trap is coated with a waxy substance that makes it hard for prey to escape. The pitcher's entrance, called the peristome, is slippery and often colorful, drawing in insects but making it hard for them to stay. When wet, the peristome becomes extra slippery, causing insects to fall into the pitcher. Nepenthes plants typically have two types of pitchers. The larger, lower pitchers are found near the base of the plant and usually rest on the ground. The smaller upper pitchers grow as the plant matures and can wrap around nearby supports. Different types of pitchers may attract different kinds of prey, making it tricky to identify specific Nepenthes species. These plants primarily catch insects, but the largest species can sometimes trap small vertebrates like frogs, birds, and even small mammals. Some Nepenthes plants have flowers that grow in clusters with separate male and female plants. 3 species have a special relationship with tree shrews, which eat the plant's nectar and leave their droppings in the pitchers, providing extra nutrients. Nepenthes attract their prey with bright colors, sweet scents, and sugary nectar. They gain essential nutrients like nitrogen and phosphorus from their prey, which is often lacking in their soil. Most captured prey consists of ants and other insects, but some plants also catch spiders, scorpions, centipedes, and even rats. Certain Nepenthes species, like N. alba marginata, mainly trap termites, while others, such as N. bicalcarata, provide space for ants to nest in their pitchers. N. lowii and other species have also developed unique relationships with animals like tree shrews and bats, benefiting from their droppings. The earliest records of Nepenthes date back to the 17th century. Number 1. Venus flytrap Dionea muscipula. The Venus flytrap, Dionea muscipula, is a fascinating carnivorous plant found only in the wetlands of North and South Carolina, USA. Although there are many hybrid versions created in cultivation, D. muscipula is the sole species in its genus, Dionea. It's closely related to the waterwheel plant, Aldrovanda vesiculosa, and sundews Drosera, all members of the Droseraceae family. This plant catches its prey, mainly insects and spiders, using leaf structures that resemble jaws. Each leaf ends in a trap that snaps shut when triggered. When an insect touches the tiny trigger hairs on the inner surface of the open trap, the trap starts to close. If a second hair is touched within about 20 seconds, the trap closes completely. This double trigger system helps prevent the plant from wasting energy on non-nutritious objects and ensures it only captures live prey. The Venus flytrap can close its jaws in as little as 1/10 of a second. The plant's trap also reacts to environmental changes. For example, it can close in response to a forest fire, protecting it from summer blazes. Despite being popular in cultivation, Venus flytraps are rapidly declining in their natural habitat and are under review for protection by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. The Venus flytrap is a small plant with a rosette of 4 to 7 leaves growing from a bulb-like stem. The length of the stem varies from 3 to 10 centimeters depending on the season. After flowering, the plant often grows longer leaves with stronger traps. If a rosette grows too large, it can divide and form colonies underground. Each leaf has 2 parts, a heart-shaped section that helps with photosynthesis and a pair of lobes that form the trap. The upper side of these lobes is red and sticky. The lobes snap shut when prey touches the 3 trigger hairs on the surface. The trap can tell the difference between living prey and things like raindrops. It takes 2 trigger touches within 20 seconds, or 1 hair touched twice quickly to close the trap. The trap's edge is lined with stiff, hair-like structures that mesh together to keep prey from escaping. This snapping mechanism evolved from an earlier flypaper-like trap seen in related plants. If the prey is too small and escapes, the trap reopens within 12 hours. If the prey struggles inside, digestion begins more swiftly. The speed of the trap's closure varies with humidity, light, prey size, and other factors, and can indicate the plant's health. Venus flytraps are less dependent on humidity compared to some other carnivorous plants. There are several forms of the Venus flytrap based on leaf shape and angle. Typica has broad, low-lying leaves. Erecta has leaves at a 45-degree angle. Linearis features narrow leaves at the same angle, and Filiformis has very narrow leaves. The form of the leaves can change with the season, light, and growing conditions. The Venus flytrap mostly feeds on beetles, spiders, and other crawling bugs, with a diet consisting of ants, spiders, beetles, and grasshoppers. The plant evolved from ancestors that used sticky traps, making it more efficient at catching larger, terrestrial insects compared to its predecessors. The Venus flytrap, along with a few other plants, can move rapidly. Its trap mechanism involves a mix of elasticity, water pressure, and growth changes. The trap closes only after 2 trigger hairs are touched to avoid false alarms. Once closed, the trap seals tightly and starts digestion, breaking down the prey with digestive enzymes. The process can take up to 10 days, after which the trap reopens, ready for its next catch. Which of these plants that eat animals did you find the most interesting? Let us know your answer in the comments section.